Hey everyone, in this video we're looking at Jakarta validation, right? So you have objects coming into your APIs, right? And once these objects are coming in, you want to ensure that the right type of data is being passed in, right? You have some business requirements. So take for instance, you have probably an email field and you're expecting that the email field is no longer than 100 characters, right? That is one way to validate. So that we'll be looking at in this video. Let's get right in. All right, so we have the famous project, which is everything Spring Boot. All right, so I will just go ahead and just modify what we've been using beforehand. All right, so we have the controllers. Let's look at the sample controller. All right, in this sample controller, right, this was what we actually looked at in the last video. Now, if you open this up, we're using a record. The beautiful thing about Jakarta validation, if you're using Hibernate 7 or Hibernate 8, right, the Hibernate Validator 7 or 8, record are now supported. If you're using the plain Pojo or you're using the this is supported. So before we continue, I just wanted to mention this about record. Before we continue, let's go in and add the dependency that is needed. So the dependency needed to do this is the Spring Boot Starter Validation. Spring Boot Starter Validation. I thought this would bring it in. Okay, so let's type it in. That'll be Spring Boots. Spring Boot Starter, then validation. All right, so we have the Spring Boot Starter validation. All right, and this would be from the Spring Boot org, the Spring Framework, Spring Boot. Okay, so now we have it. So now we brought it in. Now, before I go in and start doing all the gymnastics that we need to do, let's explore what is available, right? So let's see what is available within Spring Boot Starter validation and the things or the annotations we can make use of to actually validate our object. So this is what I recommend. If you're using IntelliJ, right, which I would recommend because it's my IDE of choice, go to the right hand side where you see Maven. Then in Maven, go to the project, which is everything Spring Boot. Go down to dependencies. Now under dependencies, look for this validation, right? And if you see, that is the Spring Boot Starter validation. When you open it up, we're going to drill down to the jar file that is basically compiled, right? We'll go into the jar file. Then we're going to explore the annotations that are available. So if you drill this down, you will see you have Hibernate Validator. All right, so this Hibernate Validator, when you open it up, you see it comes up with this Jakarta Validation API. This is what we are after. Jakarta Validation API. Now let's explore. To explore this Jakarta Validation API, come to the left, then go to external libraries. This is where all the jar files, when you bring in dependencies, they're all jars. Virtually all the jar files are found in here. So go to the external libraries, scroll down. I'm looking for Jakarta Validation API. So if you see, we have the Jakarta Validation API here. So when you explore it and open it up, let's go into the Jakarta Validation and let's go to the constraints. Now in the constraints, these are the available annotation for you to use. We have the set false, and if you see what it means, we just look at 2 before we then start delving into it. Meaning this is saying this only boolean, which is the primitive boolean and the wrapper boolean, is supported to check if it is false or true. Cool. Now let's go to another one. If we go to digits, you see digit is saying for digits you can use it on big decimal, on big integer, on char sequence, right? You can use it on this. You can use it on byte, short, int, and long. So this is important. Why is it important? I'm going through this way. I'm going through it this particular way so that you know which Java object or primitive you can use a particular annotation on. Because I've seen most developer, they will place probably a mean where there's supposed to be a digit, place it somewhere else, and they're expecting it to work. It will not work if you don't follow this process. Now, one more, let's look at future. So if you take a look at future or present, this is only applies to what? If you look at it, it only applies to dates. Only dates. So meaning dates, the local date time, anything that has to do with dates, which is the offset, everything is supported. Instant, offset, local date, anything that has to do with dates, zone date time, everything is supported. I hope this is very clear. So anytime you intend to use the Jakarta validation, you're looking for something, you could immediately just say, okay, I think I want to use something that is past. Okay, this is intuitive. Past or present. Okay, this will have to do with time. Then if you look at it, what is available, see, is coming up to, it's actually coming up, and only dates are supported. Now, the same thing with email, you can guess it. It also will support chat sequence, which is basically a string. I hope that is very, very clear in itself. All right, so what we are going to do right now is then delve in and start seeing what we can do with all this. So I'm going to go in to our famous project. We're already in the project. Let's check our DTO, which is sample DTO. Remember I mentioned we're going to be exploring this sample controller. We already have a post mapping, so let's just explore it here. So now I'm going to increase this all the more so that we can have something we can, I'll just basically just bring up, I'll add in more content. So that content is what we're going to validate by. So what I'll do is I'll split this to the right, then I'll scroll down, right? And we're going to make use of this. So what I'll do is I'll make use of this. I'm not going to explain everything, but just make use of some. The idea is just for you to know how it is used. That way, when you're developing your own project, you know how to use it. And you see how the dynamics work. So what I'll do is first, I'm going to place this on new line. So I'll place each character, or should I say each details on new line. That makes it simpler. So for string, for full name, I want to ensure that the length is not more than a particular size. Now, let's explore minimum. What is minimum used for? You see, this does not work for char sequence, right? So what I'm looking for, you would have thought, oh, minimum should be minimum string, but not so. Let's go to size. Size is what I'm looking for. So if you see, size is supported on char sequence, which is a string. So I then go in, I say the maximum size I want size. I want at size. Basically, okay, let's see, this is not okay. So let's import size. Yes, Jakarta validation constraint. You see, I was just waiting for the import, but you could see it follows Jakarta validation constraint. That is how we got here, right? Jakarta validation constraint, Jakarta validation constraint. Okay, cool. So now let's open up Jakarta validation. Now, remember what I said earlier, you can always press Control P or Command P within your parentheses to tell you exactly things that are available. So you see there's max, there's minimum. So I could say my minimum, I want my minimum has to be int. I don't want it to be, I want my minimum to be at least 5. Then I want my max should be probably 100. I don't want it to be more than 100. Then the kind of message I want to return, you need to always type in a message, right? Oh, I would say full name must be between 5 and 100 characters. Okay, so we've been able to touch on that. Now age, the beautiful thing we can do, we can say age minimum for you to use this application. We want a minimum, and you see minimum, just import this, press Ctrl P to see what you can explore. The value, so the value this minimum, the age should be at least 18, meaning it can go further than 18, but at least 18. Now the message, if it fails, if it's lesser than 18, I'll say you must be at least 18. All right, so that's cool. So when, say this is actually coupled with the front-end application and its data is passed in, when data is passed in and is lesser than 18, you get this message. All right, also we can also add a max here, right? So we just basically place that in. Okay, so max. And how do I know? If you check, this works on int. You see, this works on int, so that is pretty cool. Here also, it also works on integer, which is the wrapper type. Then also, let's check max. I'm bringing in this max. And max, I'll just say value. And value, I'll just say, let's say 50. I don't know if you have more than 50. I don't want you to do this application. So if it's more than 50, you could guess it. I'll just say, you must not be older than 50. All right, so I hope this is clear. So now that we've actually done this, let's go ahead and just explore, say, something around date also. So let's go in and bring in a local date. And just call it DOB, which is date of birth, right? I'll just say DOB, and for DOB, I only expect it should be past or present because we don't know people that are in the future. All right, so let's explore past or present. Now the beautiful thing, if you see, we have past or present, you see. So this is a very good one for us to use. You could basically use past or present. So this is what I'm interested in. So I'll say This should be past or present. All right, so let's import this. Import is cool. Remember Control P or Command P. Now I'm saying past or present, so this will check if the current date is in the future, it will block it off. That is the beautiful thing about it, to block it off. So what I'll say, the message, I'll just say date of birth must be present or in the past. So we could actually consider present, let's say for people that are just giving birth. But even with this, you could also tell that we shouldn't even be using present, right? Date of birth should be in the past because you don't want a newborn baby basically using your application. So let's just go with past alone. All right, so I'll just change this to past. All right, so that basically works. So we've been able to explore this. So now let's take in something that has to do with money, right? Let's just say we have probably a big decimal and they're passing in amounts, right? I'm just trying to explore, right? They're passing in amounts. And with this, I'll just say, remember, this can also play in Pojo. I'm deliberately using record, but it's the same way where you have your Pojo, just places annotations and then it works the same way. No difference. All right. For this also, what am I going to do? Let's just place a big decimal amount. Now for amount, you see, you have things like decimal mean, decimal max. This is pretty good. If you look at it, this supports big decimal. Cool. Decimal max, this supports big decimal. Digits, this also supports big decimal. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use decimal max, then you can explore the others yourself. All right, so I'll say a decimal max, then I bring this in. Let's explore this. This takes a boolean inclusive, and this takes let's look at it, a value, right? This takes a value, a string value. So the value, I say for the value, I don't want the value to be more than, let's look at it. Let's see. I was basically looking for the one that has Boolean inclusive. Okay. The easiest way to do, you can just always explore. If you see I was a bit confused, you could just go in here and let's read the documentation. This annotation element must be a number, okay? Whose value must be lower or equal to the specified minimum. You see, that's pretty clear. So it's in decimal max, the elements must be a number, meaning it must be a number whose value must be lower or equal to the specified amount. So in this case, I'll just probably put in 10,000, right? And I want inclusive, true. You see, inclusive is true, so there's no need for me to add it. So I'm saying from 0 to 1,000 to 10,000 is acceptable, right? If you actually add 4, so meaning it would be 9,999. I hope that basically clear. So there's no need for me to put this inclusive because it's by default true. Okay, so how do we set the minimum amount? Cool. We can also use a decimal minimal. You see, there's a decimal mean. And for minimum, okay, I think it's just gonna, okay, a decimal mean. And for minimum, I'll say I don't want it to be less than 100. I hope this is pretty clear, guys. So that's how to basically use it. And if we check, okay, we can also place in our message. And our message, just say max. I just say max 10,000, and I'll just place it here. Let's just reduce the message to mean. I'll just say message. Just say minimum. That's 100. Okay. I hope this is pretty clear, guys. Now, how do we use it? Now that we've been able to place this in, and where did we use this? If you check it out, sample controller. So sample controller, we have it in here. So pretty cool. Now, for you to use this, you need to add 2 things. Number 1, add validated. Add validated is pretty cool. Then you tell it that you want this guy to be valid by placing at valid. Just placing at valid, basically. And when you do that, this will be able to validate what is required. All right. So now that we've done this, remember we already have a Postman collection we use in testing this. So let's go back and bring up Postman. All right, Postman is coming up. So bring up Postman. We've already started the application. As you can see, the application has started up. All right, so we have Postman, right? Which is pretty cool. So we are going to do, let's go to our collection. Let's go to the collection we're basically using. All right, let's go to EBS. Did I name it TBS? Sorry, I have a bit of collection. So let me just quickly drag that out. So let's bring the, oh, I remember. We actually used, I think we used Sketchpad. The last time we checked this, we used a sketch. And sketch can be found here. We have a sketch. Yes, yes. This was the sketch we made use of. This sketch, yeah, this is the sketch we make use of in order to be able to test. Remember, we use this sketch. But I said the same thing is you can basically use with Postman. I decided to use it so that I don't have to leave the application. All right. So with that being said, so let's basically explore. So what I'm going to do, remember we are looking at sample, not sample 2, just like the previous one. So I'm going to bring this to the right. Not this, the other one. I'm going to bring this, where is it? Yeah, I'm going to bring this to the right. Remove this. I have this to the right. Then I'm exploring sample. Sample, yeah, okay. This is post, yeah. So I'm exploring sample. All right. So now we've already been able to add, we've added some details in here. So let's just go in and just run this as it is. Let's go in and run this. And let's see what happens. Okay. So now we have these details. This basically coming for the sample and basically calling the sample, this sample, and it's able to call the post, and the post basically comes in. All right. So now let's go in and then start adding our validation of what is basically required. Okay, so in this request, we have, let me bring this up, sample request. So we have a sample request. Now for full name, this already falls in the limit. Let's reduce this to, let me just reduce this to something lower. And let's try to run this again and let's see what it says. So if we run this, aha, you can see there's an error. And what is the error? The error is saying, full name must be between 5 and 100 characters. I hope this basically works good. Now let's go in and let's add the details that were there before. Now for this one, the date of birth, let's explore this date of birth. So for the date of birth, I'll say DOB. Now DOB, it will be 20, let's say 2026. Time of the recording of this video, and August is 08, and I'll say today is 3. Today is 03, which is the 3rd of August, which is coming as a string, right? This will come in as a string. Now remember, we only accept this in the past, right? Let's click this and see what will happen. You see there is an error, and let's go to the right. What is the error? It says date of birth must be present or in the past. I hope this is clear, guys. This pretty much makes sense. All right, and let's go now and then place this in the past. I'll just change this to the past, which is now 2025. Let's run this. You see this works accurately. Then finally, let's place in the amount. Now for the amount, I'm basically just going to add in, okay, so I'm saying the minimum, let's put in 99. So for 99, so this is basically equal. So let's run this. Okay, so let's see, what does it say? It said the minimum is 100. So pretty cool, right? So now let's take this on to 20,000. For 20,000, let's run this also. And what does it say? It says the max is 10,000. And let's now go and then add what is required. But let's just place in 10,000, which is the max. I'll just reduce this to 9, which is just within the range. And when we run this, and what can you see? This basically works as required. All right, so with this being said, I hope you've been able to understand how Jakarta validation works. So first off, we added in the dependency I showed you. So just run through one more time. Added the dependency. I showed you how to check the jar file. We went to the Maven. When we get to the Maven, when we actually went to Maven on the right hand side, we checked the dependency and then we drew down and we saw that it's basically using Jakarta validation API. I told you go to the external library, this external library. In the external library, you look for the Jakarta. You see, this is Jakarta validation API. Then we did open it up and then see all the annotations that are basically available under constraints. And this showed us everything. And we're able to explore. And you don't need to cram any one of them. All you just need to do is just open it up. When you open it up, what do you notice? You can see that it already has some documentation there. So if you go in, say the one we didn't use, replace this in, this basically works. Now I mentioned, if you're dealing with strings a lot, most times you don't want your strings to be empty. you always want to use blank. And that I'll just quickly insert in pretty quickly. All right, so we'll just go to our sample request for our full name. We'll place in a size, and I'll say at not blank. Not blank basically works, and I just add in a message. I'll just add in a message, and the message is full name cannot be empty. What the good thing about not blank is that it covers not null, it covers not empty, right? And it covers white space. I'll repeat it again. Not blank covers white space, covers not empty, and covers not null, which is the beautiful thing about it. You can try it out yourself and see how it pretty much works. In the next video, we'll be exploring how to do some also fun stuff with Jakarta validation. We'll be exploring things around a group validation, and I also show you how to do, let's say you have a service controller, you've gotten to your service, how to validate within your service without having to do so from the controller. With that being said, I'll see you in the next video.